Support of these things. Why did you feel it was important to come to this?
Because I'm a human being and have children. You should all be equally concerned about this. This is our planet and we're in deep, grave danger. And one of the reasons that we are is because the summits that we've had before have not been acted on not on any level. And in fact, we've gone in the opposite direction and have consumed more fossil fuels. So now we've got to get serious about it, and this march is just one example of what's happening now. This summit's so different. There's 196 countries represented. All countries in the world are there because of the popular movement that has forced those leaders to come together and actually really start to agree on things. I know it's a glass half full, half empty situation. We're not going to get everything that we want, but we are going to get some change. This cannot be ignored anymore. 20 years ago when we used to have climate change marches, it was always seen as a slightly sort of side issue. Now it's become the issue of the 21st century, and everyone has to take it seriously, and I think is.
Do you think an agreement will be signed? What are you actually hoping for? What's the best outcome for you, do you think?
The best outcome is that there is an agreement between all countries, because this is something that we have to do together. Therefore, it has to be a common agreement, and we have to use the 5-year review period to make sure that the climate science, which everyone is beginning to understand much better and which is, of course, becoming more and more specific and real for people, to make sure that comes through and is acted on, but by each country in the different ways that they need to act. Because, of course, it's also terribly important that we recognise what developing countries require in terms of backup for their economies, and the fact that they've got people who need power.
It's not fair, is it, to ask them to stop their industrial revolutions and stop emitting carbon, because the developed world has already done that.
Indeed. However, the developed world has also learned something that they need to know, which is our industrial revolution has led us into this condition. So we know that we can't continue along those lines. The days of, we've conquered the planet and it's ours to control and we can take everything we want, they're all over. And now the developing countries have to be part of that discussion. That's what's really great about the summit, and what is one of the most, it's the newest thing, I suppose, about this discussion in Paris.
And this is all about getting the leaders to put in laws in place that can change things on a massive scale. What about the individual? How green are you?
I carry 2 string bags everywhere I go. I haven't taken a plastic bag from a supermarket for about 10 years. That's one very important thing, because there's a big blob of plastic in the Pacific Ocean. All that. So that's very important to me. I walk everywhere. I walk or I take the tube. I never drive. We do have a car, but we really don't use it. So I try and keep the carbon footprint right down. So if I have to take a flight, I make sure I plant things. And we really do try to not travel as much as we used to by air. Really quite radical decisions have to be made. And I think that one of the most troublesome things for people is sort of to imagine that all the things we've taken for granted in our lives, all the things that we think we ought to have and we're owed somehow, we feel we have a right to, are going to have to be reviewed. We might not be able to have our own cars. We might have to agree to insist upon systems of mass transit that actually work. In big cities like Los Angeles, for instance, where nobody walks anywhere. I walk in Los Angeles and practically get arrested. People don't, or I nearly get killed because cars are everywhere. So we can make a difference on an individual level, is what you're saying. Absolutely, you can make a huge difference individually, but also inform yourself. Look up climate change. See what's happening. Look up what's happening in the Arctic and find out about the destruction of the glaciers and what that means. Because the more you know, the better informed you are, the better able you are to argue it. Because quite a lot of people are wandering around. This is really an oxymoron, with their heads in the sand. Obviously, you can't wander around with your head in the sand. You can wander around with a bag over your head in denial, though. And I can't do that anymore. My family can't do it anymore. And I think that the more you know, the more motivation it gives you.